Welcome back to the Vinyl Narrative. Now, there's nothing quite like dropping the needle on a beautifully pressed jazz record, especially when it's a classic album that's been given that premium audiophile treatment. But for every kind of blue or a love supreme, there's dozens and dozens of brilliant albums that have just been overlooked, especially when it comes to a high quality audiophile reissue. Now, reissuing these albums isn't just about kind of jazz snobbery, it's about keeping that legacy of jazz alive within the music industry and ensuring that these sessions are heard by new listeners and new generations in the best possible fidelity, making them kind of accessible without needing to drop, ridiculous money on an original mono pressing. So today I want to share with you my personal picks for albums that are long overdue a proper audiophile vinyl release. And these are titles that deserve to be a part of your jazz vinyl collection and enjoyed. Now, my first pick is an absolute no-brainer for me. It's one of my favourite jazz albums of all time, and it's by Curtis Fuller, who was one of the most expressive trombonists in jazz at the time, and I think his album Soul Trombone just absolutely showcases him as at the top of his game. It was released on the legendary Impulse label, and it has all the swing and soul that you'd expect, but it's never really had that audiophile spotlight. How has this not ever been part of the Acoustic Sound series, for example? Now, I do have a 1972 US stereo copy that, quite frankly, has seen better days. It plays quite nicely still, but it does have a bad dish warp on it, on the vinyl. But I actually believe that this is a deletion copy. There's just some interesting notes about this one. First of all, obviously, I picked this up in the UK. And I believe this is a mono cover, because you can see someone has kind of put a label saying it's stereo, and I don't know if this will come off on the camera, but they've kind of crossed out the mono on the spine there. But the other kind of bit of evidence that suggests that this is a deletion copy is that there is a hole punched through the artwork, and luckily not through the vinyl itself. But yeah, that's kind of a typical telltale sign that this is a deletion or a recalled copy. But yeah, it's seen better days. The cover's okay. You can see it's starting to kind of, the kind of plastic coating is starting to peel away there. So I'd love to see this one reissued by someone like Analog Productions as part of their Acoustic Sound series, or even maybe it could be a part of that new Verve Vault series, as I think this just deserves to be heard in all its glory, and that is in the high fidelity audiophile kind of range. So there we go, my first pick, Curtis Fuller, Soul Trombone. Next up we have Lee Morgan's Candy. Now this one was released it was recorded in 1957 and then released on Blue Note Records in 1958. And it's actually Lee Morgan's only quartet album, which is quite interesting because there is an absolutely stunning lineup on this release. So you've got Sonny Clark on the piano, Doug Watkins on bass, and then Art Taylor on the drums. So there's no saxophone across this record, it's just trumpet up front. Now, Candy as an album, it's kind of lyrical, and it just shows you how mature Lee Morgan was as a leader in a band, even in his very early 20s. Now, this has seen some audiophile treatment on the market. So Music Matters gave it the treatment back in 2016, but that edition is now long out of print, and of course it's a Music Matters title, so those editions usually go for silly money these days. So I looked it up before this video, and you can pick this up for kind of £160 and upwards, which, I love this record, but I'm not going to do that. This, I think, should absolutely be part of the Blue Note Classic Vinyl series lineup. It's essential hard bop, and especially with standouts on the album like Candy, CTA, Who Do You Love, I Hope, which is an interesting title. I always fumble that one. But Blue Note really need to shine the spotlight on this record. So yeah, Blue Note, you need to be listening to this and Reissue Lee Morgan's Candy. Sticking with the Blue Note catalogue, we have Along Came John by John Patton. Now this was released back in 1963, and I think this is, soul jazz at its finest. The album is really accessible, it's funky, and it's just full of groove throughout the entire album. But it's never had like a tone poet or classic vinyl reissue, which is interesting because they've really started to release kind of similar albums in this vein from like organists such as Freddie Roach and Jimmy Smith. Those are very recent reissues from Blue Note, and they've really gone hard on their kind of discography. So it'd be interesting to see why John Patton's been kind of left out of this. Now, it was actually last seen on vinyl back in 2011. Now, again, this is one that I do have a copy of on vinyl. Now, this is an early US mono reissue from 1965, and it's got Van Gelder in the dead wax. So, I was definitely going to pick this one up, and I actually got a really good price on this. I think it was like £35, which was quite good, or even 30 quid, I think. But it's in really good condition. But I think it's time for Blue Note to bring this one back into the fold, and especially for a new audience, considering the jazz organ albums are selling reasonably well. I think this one needs to be the next one up in their reissue catalogue, and preferably as a tone poet. I'd love to see it get that treatment. So there we go, John Patton's Along Came John. Okay, and then I've got one more from Blue Note. So we have Hank Mobley and his Allstars from 1957. Now talk about an all-star cast on this one. You've got obviously Hank Mobley, which obviously he was Blue Note's absolute workhorse of a tenor saxophonist. And then you've got Milt Jackson on the vibes, you've got Horace Silver on the piano, you've got Doug Watkins on the bass, and then Art Blakey on drums. So just, Blue Note royalty there. And of course recorded by Rudy Van Gelder. But this one hasn't actually officially been released, especially in mono, since 1994. And that was in Japan. It's a Japanese pressing, but looked up the originals for that kind of pressing, and they go for like £500 and up. So this is just, to me, it's screaming out for a tone poet release. The album's got incredible swing and fantastic energy, and it's just, pure class from start to finish. They need to make this one happen any way they can, I think. So yeah, Hank Mobley and his Allstars from 1957. Now, let's not forget the 70s and the height of jazz fusion. Now, last on my list, we have Gary Bartz's Juju Man. Now, this is a deep, funky, spiritual jazz cut that I think deserves far more attention than it's got in the past. There's even a little cameo of the chant from A Love Supreme by John Coltrane in the title track here, which is quite cool. But yeah, this was originally released back in 1976 on Catalyst Records, which are a subsidiary of Springboard Records, and it's not been reissued on vinyl since 2012, which was by Springboard. And I think this is just criminally underappreciated in Bart's catalogue. So now that I believe Sony Columbia, they own the rights to the majority of the Catalyst catalogue, I'd love to see this one get the premium treatment in a partnership with, a label like Real Gone Music maybe, or even, Analog Productions, who seem to pick up most things these days. Or even, they could just reissue it under the Sony Legacy label via something like Record Store Day. It's kind of the perfect release to be dropped on Record Store Day, where people are going into the record stores and kind of a bit more willing to kind of search through the racks to find those deeper gems, and this would be a great way to showcase this fantastic album by Gary Bartz. So yeah, my last pick would be Gary Bartz's Juju Man. If you've not heard it, definitely give it a listen. So that's my list of 5 jazz albums that seriously deserve a fresh audiophile reissue. Whether it's just to preserve the artistry or give new fans a way in to kind of enjoy these jazz albums and the sessions the way that they were kind of meant to be heard. I think it's definitely around their time now. Now I want to hear from you. What are your most wanted jazz reissues? Let me know down in the comments below. And maybe, just maybe, someone from Blue Note or Verve are watching this and they'll listen to that and make it happen. So if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with another jazz head to get their thoughts as well. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, keep on spinning.